Real estate investment practice problem using Excel. Adjustable rate mortgage or ARM with a payment cap instead of a rate cap, part number 3. Get ready because we're raising the stakes with real estate. Here we are in our Excel worksheet. If you have access to the Excel worksheet, would like to follow along, note that we have 3 tabs on down below: example, practice, and blank. Let's take a look at them now, starting with the example tab, in essence being an answer key. We started off by looking at the standard fixed rate 30-year loan and related amortization table so we can compare and contrast to the ARM or adjustable rate that we're focusing in on this time. This problem being a little bit different than a prior practice problem with relation to the ARM or adjustable rate, in that we have the loan $100,000, 30-year, 360 months, initial rate 9%, but instead of a rate cap, we have a payment cap this time of the 7.5. The margin is then the 2%. We entered the index being something that we're going to be reliant on or possibly estimating to think about what will happen in the future when we're taking out the loan to make our adjustments or estimates. We have the rate, which is going to be the index plus the margin, which the margin being 2% gives us our rates over here. Then we took a look at what the payments would be if there were no restriction, meaning just taking the rate using that rate that we have calculated. Then we applied the restrictions over here, and we said, well, what if we apply the restrictions, which is that 7.5% on the annual payment cap? So we can't have an increase over 7.5. Therefore, if the index results in an interest rate, the increase in the index results in an interest rate that results in a payment that is higher than 7.5 from the prior payment, then we're only going to raise it by the 7.5. Now, we did this kind of intuitively. We're going to go back in now and put in some formulas in order to pick this problem up. We then calculated our ending balances, which was a little tricky because you can see the ending balances are actually going up due to negative amortization. We looked at that phenomenon on the table as well in terms of our amortization table. So that's kind of the tricky thing here. The payments could remain somewhat constant or some more likely to be in our range, possibly not swing as much as if we had no cap or if we had a rate cap, but we could end up with this negative amortization thing. And so there's the pros and the cons. We're going to be continuing on this time and putting in our logic functions, getting fancy with the logic functions here. So we're going to go to the second tab, practice tab. This has some pre-formatted worksheets that you can enter data into with doing a little bit less formatting as we go. We're going to the blank tab now. That's where we're doing our work here because we're doing stuff from one scratch. So we had then the index, we had the rate, we had the restricted payments, and then this capped area, that's where we're working now. I'm going to ungreenify this last row because that's not doing anything for us. We're going to unband. It's not a bandit anymore. This isn't a bandit area. No more green. We're going to undo that. And then, so we're going to enter the caps here just another way. So what I'm going to do is delete these items. I'm going to leave the first one there because there is no logic function there because obviously there's nothing above it. So it can't be, 7.5% increase, whatever cap thing. But here, now the logic was, is this payment amount has to be the lesser of the amount that we got from the rate that we calculated using the payment calculation, or 7.5 increase from the prior amount. We would like to do that with a logic function so that it will populate automatically, so that if I change the data on the left-hand side, then our table over here will change automatically. So our first item in our logic function or if function will be this divided by this minus 1. Let's just think that through so we make sure we understand that first component. Remember, we're looking at that 7.5% increase. So if I take the end result, which is this, divided by where we started at, we get then adding a percent, couple decimals, we got an increase. So in other words, if I was to multiply the 801.62 times 127.43%, we would get to the 1025.31. In other words, it's a 27% increase on it. So what I want to do is take that amount minus the 100% or 1, and that will give us our amount that we can compare to the 7.5. So that's going to be our first kind of component of the argument. Let's put that into place here. We're going to say if, we need an equal signs, if brackets. We're going to say this amount, the ending result after our rate change, divided by this amount up top, which was our starting point, minus 1. And that would be our increase, our percent increase or decibel increase. If that is greater than 7.5%, the 7.5% over here, I'm not going to put the absolute references in yet. I'll do that later after we finish the function, so I can think through the function first. And then we're going to say comma. Then, if that's true, meaning if that increase is greater than 7.5, we're limited to the 7.5, which is going to be this item times the 7.5 plus 1. So I'm going to say brackets 1 plus the 7.5, because the same kind of logic applies here. We got to take the prior amount. If I multiply times the 7.5, that would be the amount of the increase plus the prior amount. Or we can multiply times 100% plus 7.5, or 1 plus 0.075, which is 107.5% to get us directly there. So that's going to be our calculation. And then we're going to say if not, comma, then we would just take this amount over here, and that would be it, and that's what we would use. And then we could say enter. It's going to close up the brackets for us, so that looks like it's calculating properly. So then we have our 7.5. Now that was a big increase. Let's just change this to see what would happen if I change this to 25%. Then we're at it was even higher than that. It was, let's say we change it to 30%. Then we could pick up finally this 1025.31. So let's bring it on down to 7.5 again. So there we have it. And now I'm going to go back in there, double click on it. Anything that's outside of my table, meaning anything that's in column L, we're going to make absolute. So I'm going to put my cursor in the L8 right there, F4 on the keyboard, $ before the L and 8, and right there another L8, F4 on the keyboard, $ before the L and 8. Enter. Then we can copy that down, and we would have our calculations calculated on down once again. Let's just check it though a few more times. Let's run the calculation a few more times. So we'll do it again. This will equal if brackets. We're going to take this divided by that, and then that would be the difference, but it would be 100 or 1 plus the percentage increase. So I got to subtract out the 100% or 1. If that, then that argument is greater than, shift that thing, the 7.5%, then, comma, then we want to take the cap, which is going to be the prior amount, times, and then I got to take 1 plus, or 100% plus 7.5%, 1 plus the 7.5%, brackets. If not, then we're just going to use this amount over here, and that'll be it, and enter. Closing up the brackets for us, that should be good. Then I would go back into it and adjust for anything that's outside of our table so that we can make it absolute. That would be L8 right there, F4 on the keyboard, $ before the L and 8 right there, F4 on the keyboard, $ before the L8, enter. Copying that down, it should do what we would expect. So there we have it. Let's do it one more time, or a couple more times here. Equals the if brackets. We're going to say this cell divided by this cell above minus 1. If that is greater than the 7.5 increase, then, which means comma, then we have to take the prior amount times 1 plus 7.5, because that's the cap. But if not, comma, that means comma when you say if not, then you just take the prior amount, and that should do it. Then I'm going to go back in and make my absolute references for anything outside the table. That's going to be anything in column L. That's going to be here, F4 on the keyboard, F4 on the keyboard, and enter. Closing up the brackets. If we copied it down, it should work. And let's do it that last time though. So we're going to say if brackets, this cell divided by this cell minus 1 were greater than the 7.5%, then, which means comma, you'd have to hit the cap, which would be the prior amount times brackets 1 plus 7.5. which would be a 7.5 increase plus the prior amount. But if not, then you just take that amount right there and that would be good. Then you'd go back in if you were to copy it down and say everything that's outside of my table over here in my data set, making it absolute, such as L8 right there, F4 keyboard, and that L8 F4 keyboard, and it closes up the brackets for us. And there we have it.